So welcome back, guys. And I have amazing person today. I have Walid. He's all the way from UK and he was busy. So we decided to have this interview after some time. So he's now free and he's going to answer all the queries which we are having. I have few questions for him. Now, before we start, I was having a discussion with him and he mentioned one thing, like this word of DevOps. He is quite annoyed right now because he's getting so many opportunities from the recruiters every day. He has to entertain those recruiters and say like, this is dev, like I'm interested or I'm not interested, something like that. So the whole idea I wanted to mention, like this particular phase, or I should say the industry is so crazy, the opportunities are so immense. So if you are a beginner and if you have the understanding of DevOps, or maybe you're planning to go there, this is the right video, I should say, or the interview where Walid will share with us like what are the ways we can become. So Walid, that is from my side. First of all, let us know the viewers about you and what do you do.
Yeah, so my name is Walid, and I've been in IT since 2017 through advice of a friend. Just said, "Oh, you should do IT. There's a lot of money in it." And at first, I thought, "Okay, let me follow the money."
Okay.
So when I first started doing it, I realized, you know what, this is actually a lot nicer than I thought. It's more fun. And one thing, if I was to advise anyone in life, don't go for the money. I did
Okay.
at first.
Okay.
But then I realized it was something that was me because I was always a technical person. I like to play a lot of games. I've built computers in the past to play games on. So I already had that background and I had that flame was already ignited in me for IT per se. But
Okay.
there's a lot of people, not everyone is technical. Not everyone, knows all about computers and is willing to learn a whole new language for coding. So, but they hear, oh, this guy is making £1,000 a day, £2,000 a day. He's making £100,000 salary with so many crazy benefits. He's working from home. He's chilling. He's living a good life, and the company takes care of him. They take him on holidays and trips. That's a bonus, I think. I think what is important for someone is to look at something, see if you like it. If you like it, then do it. If you don't like it, just go to something else because there's no point to do something you don't like, but the money is good. I'll give you two examples: accountants, lawyers. Some of these people, they deal with numbers 24/7. There are some stories of them thinking on their way to work, if I break my leg now, I can, not work for 6 months. That'll be amazing. But they're making good money, but they still don't want to go to work. And they're trying to find any way to not work and still get paid.
Okay.
So it's something where I've realized, I saw a quote on LinkedIn that you should make your hobby your job, because a
Okay.
hobby is something you do out out of extra time for no material return, money
Okay.
or a favor, or getting attraction from people from it. It's just you do it because you find it fun. You like to play around with it. I'll give you an example. With my example,
Okay.
I built a few PCs. I wanted to. At first, when I was in school, I was thinking, okay, I used to play a lot of console games, but I thought, the consoles are very limited. Let me get a PC.
Mhm.
I've heard that they're very good. Let me join the PC master race. So I would go online and I was like, okay, how does it even work? I need to buy a motherboard. Okay, I need to buy a CPU. What CPU do I need? And you just do all of these research and you look at all these YouTubers that build it. And I think I watched more than 100 videos of people
Okay.
just building PCs. What component does this? Why is it important to have a better graphics card? Or you don't always need the best graphics card, because sometimes companies will upsell you. They'll say you need the most
Yeah.
powerful, the most latest, but you don't, because
Yeah.
some of them they might cause bottlenecks if you put it with the wrong motherboard, or
Definitely.
if you
Yeah.
don't buy M.2. Like, it's just, you have to know what you're doing in any profession. In any profession, if you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you're doing.
Okay.
So after I decided to do IT, I done the very basic course over here. It was actually a government funded
Okay.
course.
Mhm.
It's called PC maintenance. It's the equivalent of CompTIA A plus. It's the
Okay.
same thing. It's just an awarding body in the UK. I done
Mhm.
it, and then they said to me, "Oh, you're very good to do networking. Cisco is the future." I still
Okay.
didn't know what was going on. I just followed them. I done Cisco, and after I finished Cisco, I said, "What now?" And then the college said to me, do servers, do Microsoft servers, MCSA. It's retired
Okay.
now, but at the time I done that. I was like, okay.
Mhm.
As I done MCSA, I just felt like I'm having so much fun now. This is
Okay.
where I want to start.
Okay.
Everyone says Cisco, everyone says networking, everyone says this, but personally, I find it so boring. I
Okay.
know it, I good it. It's foundational knowledge. I think everyone has to do it, but it's not something for me. But there's a lot of money in it. But I didn't decide to do it. But thankfully, IT is very broad and very vast. So I did.
Exactly.
This. I went to the server side of things. I built my own PC again. I learned that a server is just a PC with more hard drives. That's essentially it. Nothing special.
So you are
So
kind of a person, you will see a dead machine and you want to just wake it up and sort of operate on it and like make it live.
exactly, we actually took very old machines. I think it was called HP
Okay.
G60s. They're very old, but they did the job. We put in about 32 gigabytes of RAM. We put in about maybe 10 terabytes of hard drive, and we just played around with it. And the teacher said, I want you to install this, I want you to do this, I want you to do that, I want you to install 2 virtual machines on it, and just play around with it basically. And it really did help build me as a person today, because when someone's configuring in DevOps,
Mhm.
you need to know, what are you configuring, what are you coding. You're coding basically other computers in a server room in Virginia, in Dublin, in UK, in Mexico. All these servers are all over the world, and you can connect to them as if it's with you right now, which is very crazy.
Okay. Mhm. So it's
So
quite a like humble story you have shared with us, like that you started as a designer, you're designing the PCs, and now you're doing at a server level. So it's a quite a like funny story, I should say, like you were enjoying it. But one thing I wanted to convey to other viewers, like you mentioned something like don't run for money, because and this is something which I would also agree in my career line, like money is something which flows like when you want. It's the skill based thing. If you have the skill, money will flow. But ultimately, if you're not enjoying, like you're grinding from Monday to Friday, Monday to Saturday, and if you're sleeping and you're like, okay, I have not done anything worthful, I'm not enjoying, so obviously you can have the highest paying job, but you won't be happy with that. You won't be happy with
yeah,
that. Now,
it
well,
won't
I
give you
have,
the satisfaction.
yeah, I have the question, like you recently completed a DevOps certification. Now I want to
Mhm.
understand, like obviously this is sort of a hobby for you, but what made you interested in getting the certification? Was something like it was forced on you, like no, you have to show that you have the expertise, or it is something like you said, no, I have this expertise, I want to test my expertise, or what was like that?
So when I was told about DevOps, when I was doing my job prior, I was working as an infrastructure analyst.
Mm-hmm.
So we were dealing with the front end stuff, on the in the company buildings, dealing with all of the Office 365, dealing with the group policies, just dealing with all the users and the accessibilities, and just support.
Okay.
So in that field, because of COVID, that field is really, really dying, because
Okay.
now less and less physical servers are on sites because of, number one, security, cost effective. It's so cost effective just to go to AWS and rent service from them.
Yeah,
It's so
exactly.
cost effective for companies. Like, why would they spend £100,000 on all the machinery when they can spend £20,000 a year on just renting servers and renting all the equipment? And if they decide to go bigger, they can go bigger. If they said, you know what, we're not doing as much as we anticipated, we're gonna go smaller, they can go smaller. The freedom is there. And it's just like a switch, turn on and off, on and off.
Yeah.
It's just so simple. It's so simple. I mean, people make IT and DevOps make sound like, whoa, this guy is DevOps. That sounds like a big title, like a doctor almost. Some people make it out like that, but if you get into the nitty gritty of it, it's just a software developer for backend. It's nothing special, but it's very technical and I think it's a very important role nowadays, and it really it's going to really
So
pave the way for the future.
like we discussed this DevOps thing. So like if I'm a beginner right now, can you explain me what is DevOps? Because like when we talk about .NET, when we talk about like let's
Mm,
say any language, it is something that I have to learn. Okay, when we talk
yeah.
about operating system, that is something which I have to learn. But DevOps is something which does not have any like sort of, I cannot touch it. What is that? Like obviously I understand that is a concept, but if I have to
Mhm.
understand in a simple way, what is DevOps?
So DevOps in truth is two words: development operations.
Okay,
Now, 20, 30 years ago, it was actually two jobs:
okay,
development department, and operations department. However, the problem with that was there was a lot of miscommunication
okay,
when that happens. You know, the development team miscommunicates with the operation teams. They don't follow the same plan. They don't follow the same rota. They don't do the same activities that they were planning to do. And then there's a lot of mistakes that happen. And then that really just it brought up a lot of blame culture. It made a lot
okay,
of people blame each other and saying, "Oh, it was this guy's fault, he didn't tell me," or "this team didn't respond as quick." And so then after years, the industry just just merged it together to development
okay.
operations, where it's one person or one team dealing with both.
Okay. So basically, like again, I want to tell to the viewers, like if you are not aware of it, there are two departments, development and operations. Now they have been
Mm.
merged. Now, why there is so much hype around it? Because since you are now a person who is capable of managing two departments, so your worth will be actually quite more compared to a person who is just managing one single department. I correct me if I'm wrong.
You're completely correct, because companies, like anyone, like a business, they don't want to lose money. And
Exactly.
if they're going to pay for one person, they want to they in truth squeeze as much out of you as they can, but not in a malicious way. I found that they treat DevOps engineers like doctors almost.
Okay.
I to say, literally, they will tell you all the benefits. They go, "Please come work for us. We have,"
Okay.
one company said, "We have unlimited holidays. We're paying
Okay.
£80,000 a year. We have every month. We take all our staff to dinners, and every 3 months we take them on holidays." Like, they want you to come work for them because you provide a very, very, very uh like you're very integral to them, and they really
Okay.
value you. And that's not just for DevOps, it's just for any software and
Okay.
programmers, any field to do with coding, because it's
Mhm.
such a niche. Not everyone can do it and will have the patience for it. And
Okay.
it's only growing due to our reliance on devices. Like, I didn't know that DevOps and Azure, it's involved in everything, like even
Okay.
cars. When I was doing research, BMW, they use AWS in their cars. I have no idea how, but they do
Okay.
it.
Okay. So basically, ultimately is like since cloud industry is increasing, DevOps is getting like DevOps is something like we are the doctors. We have to make sure that your cloud is sound and like it is secure. Okay. Now I want to understand, like since you got the certification, now a lot of people have this kind of a thinking, okay, Walid got the certification, now his life is set. He does not have to lift his finger. He's going to have easy ride. So is it like that? I want to understand from your perspective because you have the industry knowledge.
I think it's the complete opposite. Like, once you get the
Okay.
certificate, now you have to continuously prove yourself. If
Okay.
you're gonna stand up and say, "I am a DevOps expert certified," now
Mhm.
you're going to have more pressure on you. You're gonna have more people
Okay.
uh, asking you and pushing you. And in interviews, like, they'll ask you scenario-based questions. They'll even give you activities. Like,
Okay.
they really want to push you, because the way I look at it is, companies, as well as them investing in you, you're going to be investing your time in them, because you got to remember, like, the
Exactly.
average career is about 30, 40 years, and you really want to spend a good chunk of it for a company that isn't going to be the best, so to say, or maybe not the best opportunities for you. So
Okay.
it just depends on how much worth you can provide. And it's something you have to keep proving yourself. It's never something where you can just sit back and say, "I have the expert badge," put it on your shoulder, on your chest, and say, "I am certified in DevOps." You have to continue. Now you've done that. Now you have to continuously work even harder and as hard as. There's always steps up. There's never You can't. There's never sitting down, especially if
Okay,
you
so
want to progress.
okay, so ultimately there is room for improvement. And secondly, if you got the DevOps certification, that does not mean that you are the god now. It means that you have more responsibilities, which I agree to that, because these certifications are not something where you just participate and you get the certification. These are the certification which are, I would say, like thoroughly managed by Microsoft, and obviously Microsoft audits them and they check your knowledge at every level. I have seen these certifications. I have, like, personally, if I talk about, they are very tough, being very honest. Now,
Okay.
again, I'll say, now they, like, a lot of people have this thinking, like, I feel like they assume that it is very easy to get the certification. I'll just go there, I'll read the theoretical part of it, and then I'll go to the examination, I'll check the answer, and I'll be done. So am I, like, what do you say, like, do I need a practical knowledge to gain this kind of certification, or theoretical work out? What do you say?
It definitely makes it easier. I mean, everyone is different. Some people can just absorb stuff like a sponge. Someone could just read a whole page and they can retain that knowledge. Some need physical learning to be able to retain that knowledge. So I think it would be the best of both worlds.
Okay.
If
Okay.
you
So
can have hands-on experience as well as the theory, that way you can tie in together both theory and practical, so that you're able to implement. Because one thing a friend of mine told me, if you have 5-10 years experience in something and you go to a new company, they're not hiring you, and then at that point you're going to be a senior person. They're going to be paying you top money. They're not just paying you because of that. They're paying you because of all your experiences in the past. Because you could come to a board meeting and they can be discussing, oh, we want to do X, Y, Z. And you tell them, come on, this is a rookie mistake. I've lived this mistake 5 years ago. We've done it and we know we failed. But maybe they won't listen to you, and then what you predicted sadly comes true. But it's
okay.
because that's why companies want people with more experience, because they have more experience and exposure
Okay.
with these kind of things.
So basically, having a practical knowledge is going to give me sort of a longer run in this journey compared to just having theoretical knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I want to understand, like, you like started creating PC, you started designing PC. This was something sort of a hobby for you. And when you thought about doing the DevOps, that was obviously like sort of a thing, you were doing this stuff for the cloud. But I want to understand, like, what was your approach? Like, how did you approach this certification? Because obviously this certification is very tough. Again, I want to say that. So how was your approach? And because obviously, since you're working full time, you have responsibilities, you have personal life, you have family, you have professional life. So how did you manage your time and how did you approach towards the certification?
So it was definitely a roller coaster of a ride.
Okay.
You know, you go up and down, up and down. There's some weeks where you go in full throttle. Some weeks you say to yourself, you know what, I'm not really progressing. I don't see the fruits of my labor. I'm not gonna bother. But then that's why I think like experience or practical studying comes about, because let's say you learn a particular chunk of the certification, then you go to the labs and you implement what you learned. You goes, wow, look, it's working, this is here, this is there. Because it just comes back to what excites you, what makes you work. Like recently I've been playing around with Linux a lot because that's part of DevOps.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in Kali Linux, like penetration testing. So
Okay. Yeah.
so I have my home office where I have my PC and my setup. It's a very nice setup with,
Okay.
2 monitors, everything. But sometimes I just want to sit in bed and play with Linux, so I'm not really bothered. So
Okay.
what I've done is I went on AWS because I just find it easier than Azure. When AWS, there's a free tier, completely free,
Yeah.
and you can just create a PC, a computer on it, and you can load whatever operating system you want on it. So I put Kali Linux on it, and then I just loaded it through my laptop, and I just sit in bed and I just play around with the software.
Okay. Okay. So basically you're trying to say, like, if I'm planning to approach towards the certification, I should be going towards the more practical hands-on, because
For
obviously I
me,
would
it
like,
worked.
yeah. No, obviously, I would like to add to the audience as well. Like DevOps is something you cannot master by theory, because it is basically case based. Like a lot of companies will say, okay, I'm using Windows. How can you say that this is the requirement we are having? Someone will say, no, we are using this operating system, but we are using this version of it. We are using this version of the platform. We are using this version of the database file. So obviously, this is something where you will like more practical knowledge you have, the more experience you have, the more expertise you will gain, and the more like value, I would say, that you can provide to the company. Okay, now
Exactly.
coming next, now as you mentioned, like this was something which excited you, and obviously I'm a beginner right now in the field. Now, as per se, like I'm a beginner in the DevOps field. Now, how much time do you think I should be spending in a day so that I can manage my work-life balance as per, or like I can make sure that I'm able to get these kind of certification, and I can actually provide the worth, or I should say the value to the company which they are expecting from me?
So before anything, one thing to note is burnout is definitely a thing.
Okay.
So I think it just depends on the person. I
Okay.
found that an hour and a half was my max.
Okay.
Sometimes for that would be for theory. For practical, I could do maybe 5-6 hours of practical
Okay.
because it's so
Okay.
fun. Like I never get bored. Like I could be
Okay.
doing the work, and then I look at the time. It's 7 a.m. I go back to doing work. I look at the time again. It's 9 o'clock already. I'm thinking, when did that even happen? Like
Okay.
because I'm so like intuitive into it, and I'm not. It's not a tedious task. It's like a hobby. It's like fun. It's like you don't want it to end, and then when you realize, oh, it's time to go, or
Okay.
then it makes it more fun to do. Like right now, I've learned to put a timer on because I have other responsibilities. So I've got to leave at a certain time. So I've put 2 hours or an hour and a half, and I'll just leave after that. But sometimes if I'm going through any issues, I have this sort of consistent need to fix the issue. I couldn't leave until I fixed the issue. So I'll give you an example. I was trying to SSH into my remote server.
Okay.
Just wasn't working. Just wasn't working. Just for maybe for 3 hours at least, maybe 4. I lost track of time. I was
Okay.
just Googling, going on Stack Overflow, going on AWS's support page, looking for all the solution, and on YouTube, and just I learned, and this is the beauty of it. When you encounter issues is when you really learn. So I
Okay.
learned all the other ways, but sadly it didn't work. But at least I know the process now. I know the steps. So now in the future, if someone has something similar, or if I encounter something similar, I'll just try everything that I've done now from the top of my head because I've lived it. I've experienced it, and I can. I'm familiar with the process.
Okay. So basically, like I would say, like trying something, failing, then retrying, then failing, then retrying.
Mhm.
And again, if I talk about in terms of numbers, so like whatever number is good for you, like you feel like I should spend 1 hour, maybe 2 hours. So like there is no predefined number. Now you mentioned a very good point. I would say, like you mentioned that you constantly visited Google or maybe Stack Overflow or the various forums where you can find the answer. I want to understand this. This is sort of a norm in the industry where they assume like where people assume that I should have everything in my brain. So like let's say if something has to happen, I should be able to recall everything, and I should be able to put it that way. So like, is it the norm, or like you as a expert as well, you have to Google around and you have to search for these stuff? Okay, this is how it is supposed to be done.
So one thing to know, as humans, we can only process so much, or we only know so much. There's only a finite amount of days on this earth we have, so you can't
Yeah.
learn everything.
Okay.
And one law or one practice I always remember in life, not just in IT: if you've
Okay.
experienced this issue, someone else has.
Okay.
Without a shadow of a doubt, there are 7 billion people. Someone has
Yeah.
had the same issue as you,
Yeah.
somewhere, somehow. So you need to know that learning this stuff is just to know what to look for. Let's say I'm having a networking issue. If I have
Okay.
no networking background, how can I Google the solution when I don't know what I'm looking for?
Okay.
So it's about knowing what is wrong, but knowing what's wrong is not the same as knowing how to fix it, because there are two
Yeah.
different things.
Yeah.
Sometimes you
Exactly.
might not even know what's wrong, but it's having the ability to know the key terms, the process, what is advised, what isn't advised to do, because that's what really certifications do. It gives you the theory about it. And in tech especially, every day it's always evolving and increasing. That's why you see a lot of certifications expiring. Like MCSA doesn't exist anymore. Now they're replaced with Azure. In a few years, Azure might not even exist. There might be something else. They're always changing. CCNA changed. Like it's always increasing and changing. So it's just about knowing how to keep up, basically.
Okay. I want to add one thing. He mentioned this point of things ever evolving. I will give a very brief about experience of mine. There was a pause of 6 months for my in my personal in my sort of a professional career, where when I went back to the cloud platform of AWS, I was like, okay, it has changed a lot. So you have to understand as a viewer, obviously, and I think he will also agree to that. Like, since things are evolving, you have to keep yourself updated every single day. And obviously, it is not possible for you to keep yourself updated in every single field, but you have to choose a single field so that you can keep up yourself and keep yourself updated. Now, well, again, like as a viewer, obviously, a lot of people would be having this question like, I'm a beginner. I have just heard this term from Walid, like what is DevOps? You have mentioned that there were two departments, now you have merged it. Now I'm a beginner right now and I want to get started and I want to start learning this technology because it feels like I can provide a lot of value. So what would be my way of starting? Should I be starting from somewhere, or like what are the right resources for me to get started? Or I should say the free resources.
So there are two approaches you can take. And the number one approach, which depending on where you are in your situation, is to look for a traineeship. I think that those are much better because number one, they're going to train you and you're going to have real life scenarios. And they will pay for your certification, number one, because it is expensive. And when I done it, I had to pay for it because the company that I was working with were not doing any schemes at the time. So I had to pay for it myself, but I was committed and I wanted to do it, but it was much harder. But if I was in a traineeship where the pay was maybe a bit less than your average DevOps role, because you're a starter, they train you, you have a career coach. That's very important, I think. If you don't have someone that will always advise you and go back to, then you're really going to get lost because you're not really going to have someone to speak to or ask questions, or if you get stuck, or he might motivate you, he might message you saying, "Oh, Walid, I haven't heard from you for a week. Have you not been doing any activities?" So that's my number one advice. There's 3 steps. Number one, find a traineeship, a company to teach you, train you, and study with them. Number 2, if you want to take your own approach, you can, there are a lot of free sources on YouTube. I use most of them. I've been following a lot of tech influencers on YouTube. I'll name them at the end. They're very good. I really recommend. These 2, I watch a lot of their videos. They make tech seem so easy. Which is the best. Which is the best thing. They make it sound like not complex at all, and it's very, 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 very straightforward how they teach, and they make it at the same level as paid courses. Like it just is very, very beneficial to try all the free sources first, especially the ones I recommended. And if you have a peer, if you have a friend that also wants to do DevOps, you and him or you and her can compete with each other. I think competition really, of course it's positive competition. It's like mutual. It's just like, oh, I want to be this person, that person, not in a negative way.
So he has mentioned 2 points. Like, one is have someone who can actually guide you to the right path, because obviously this is somewhere a lot of people get lost. Because what happens, I'll add my few points here. What happens when we when we are in a new town, we just look for everywhere. Where should I go? Where should I go? Where should I go? Like, if I have to eat something, where should I go? But if you just go there and you reach to a person who is living in that town for, let's say, 10 years, you will say, hey, I'm looking for this kind of a food. Where can you suggest me? And he will give you one single answer, that you should go there. So you are saving your time as well. plus you are taking advantage of his last 10 years of experience, his mistakes, his learnings, which is actually quite valuable, because you are actually like, instead of you spending 10 years, you're getting that answer in a single go. So this is a very good advice you have given. Like, again, I appreciate that you are being so humble, that you have to be in a constant process of learning, and obviously make sure that you have someone who can guide you. So again, that is a very good approach. Now, this is a funny question I have. Are there any shortcuts? Like, you have mentioned these certifications and these technical stuff. So is there any shortcut? Because I don't have so much time. Okay. Even though you are passionate, but I am not passionate. So like, is there any shortcut for me so that I can get the certification and I can 2x, 3x my career growth?
There is one shortcut that I know of, but the success rate is very low.
Okay. And what is that?
The only memorizing the questions.
Okay.
A lot of people, they would get the question bank. So Microsoft have a thing where they sell you the question banks for about £55, and it's
Okay.
like 800 questions, like, and 80 or 70 of them will come up.
Okay.
So a tenth of those questions will come up.
Okay.
So this person would have to memorize all 800 or familiarize themselves with all 800.
Okay.
Just to pass a tenth of it, basically.
Okay. But I want to mention one thing: you can memorize anything, but when a recruiter will ask you a case-based question like this has happened, you won't be able to answer. Again, I hope you agree to that.
Yeah, they would ask you scenario-based questions, because they'll say, oh, one team member had this issue, or they couldn't connect over here. What would you suggest? And you're going to be stuck there. What are you going to say? You're not going to repeat the questions that you memorized. So
yeah,
the one thing I realized, these certifications can only get you to the door.
Okay.
And sorry, it can only get you to the interview. After that, it's upon you to show your worth and show your knowledge. So if you get to the interview and you're just not really showing what you've learned, then it's going to be it's very obvious, especially for tech recruiters.
Okay.
You stand out like a sore thumb. It's very easy to get caught out.
Okay. Okay. Now, one thing which, again, as a beginner, I have this question, like, if we talk about these technologies, they are like a lot, I would not say complex, but yes, they are difficult to learn. Now, I am in a certain age, like where, like, let's assume that I have completed 50% of what was required. So how can I showcase that, yes, I'm a learner, even though I'm not able to learn at a big pace right now? But yes, I want to show to a potential recruiter that if you hire me, at least that I have the learning capabilities and I can navigate through this tough time, and I can be a worth which you are expecting out of me.
So the best way to do that is projects. Just
Okay.
take over projects and do it in your free time, when you're for zero, basically, for no money, doing it for no actual like monetary gain, or no public gain, or anything. Because if you can show a recruiter, look, this is my passion, I love doing it. In fact, I'm working on a project over here. I work on 2 hours a day, or 10 hours a week. I do this, and I'm looking to launch it just for fun. They'll say, okay, so this guy, he likes it so much, he actually takes time out of his day to do it. And one thing as well, if you can show recruiters, I've realized this as well, when you go to any job, they'll train you, they'll teach you, because they need to make sure that you are competent to do the work. So, but there's 3 things they can't teach you. They can't teach you how to be a team worker. They can't teach you how to have good personality, and they can't teach you how to, be a good character to work with, basically.
Okay.
So with this, if you have these and you're lacking in other areas, they can overlook it. They can say, okay, no problem. We can see that you're a team worker. We can see that you love to work on things, and you're passionate about cloud, and you love the cloud, and it's in it for you for the long run. It's not a thing where you felt it's a good idea, I want to do it. It's something I've done it. I want to do it, and it's something that I want to do for the rest of my life. If you can just convey that in a good manner, then then it shows off a lot better, and they might even pick you over someone that knows everything but is stubborn, arrogant, and he goes, I don't like to work with other people because I think they're gonna make mistakes and I'm not gonna make mistakes. They'd rather pick you because you're gonna be the better person to work with, because it's a culture, it's an environment. Some jobs, if you work full time, you're gonna be at the job more than at home, and they want to bring in the right people to make you feel at home.
Yeah. So ultimately what he's trying to say is that you can have n number of skills, but if you don't have a right attitude towards your job, obviously it will be a very difficult story. Now, Walid, one last question. Obviously you have spent a lot of time with us. I want to understand, as a beginner, you must have made a mistake, which has sort of, I would say, increased the timeline of you getting the certification or achieving this kind of a expertise. Now, what is one mistake you would tell to a beginner right now that, hey, don't make this mistake, so you will save this amount of time for yourself?
Procrastination and not putting myself forward. I always had this feeling like, oh, I'll do it later, I'll do it later. Oh, I heard about coding. I was like, I don't think coding's for me. But I never tried it. I never looked and said, you know what, actually, no, coding's good. It's actually fun. It's very interesting. I never tried it. Like they say, you don't judge a book by its cover. I didn't try it to say I don't like it. Maybe I looked at it at first and I thought, no, it looks too complicated. I don't want to learn a whole new language. English is not for me, or something like that. But, and also procrastination. That's why I really stressed on having a career mentor, because they can really push you. If you know you have someone to go back to, you're going to say, okay, I can't sit around and watch a movie. Let me just do an hour of work, because so I have something to tell my career advisor. Yes, I done this week. I done that. Oh, I didn't do that much on here, but I've been focusing more on Linux because it's more appealing for me, and just that kind of stuff. Just being able to push yourself forward. Sometimes it's hard. You get burnt out. You say, forget it, I'm just gonna not do too much work. I think the best way, which I found, was when I was doing a lot of theory and I wasn't in a job, I found myself stopping a lot more than when I was in a job. Because when you're in a job and you're learning, and then you get the opportunity to sometimes implement or understand more your job, you're like, okay. Yesterday I was reading about at the time, networking. I was reading about topologies. I was like, okay, so today we were configuring the networks. Oh, I know what topology is. I know this one is this topology, that topology. And I was able to identify it, and it gave me that rush of my knowledge is benefiting me. Like, it's not just like learning and just theory, because theory gets boring, and if you can't show that, if you can't feel like it's benefiting you, you're gonna just shrug it off, lose interest.
So basically, like, you would have preferred if you have someone as a mentor, because they are ultimately going to push you forward, because they know that you are capable of doing it, but in your head you have this thinking like, okay, I think I won't be able to do it. And secondly, obviously, don't be scared of new things which are coming your way. They are there so that you can grow yourself, compared to stop you from your progress.
Exactly.
So thank you very much, Walid. It was great connecting with you. But one last thing I want to understand, a lot of people would be actually inspired by what you have said, and they want to wish to connect with you. They want to get sort of a mentorship. Again, that is up to you how you can help them out. But let's say if someone wants to be in touch with you, they want to connect with you, they want to understand some question they have, so how they can reach you?
If you put my LinkedIn in the description, then they can just message me. And
so LinkedIn is going to be the medium. We will be pasting the link of your profile so that people can reach you out. So awesome, man. Thank you very much for today's interview. I hope a lot of people, at least one or two people, have the understanding what they are capable of doing. And if they are, and if we met them in the journey, I would be more than happy to use something which they have built. So thank you very much.
I'd really like to help as much people as I can not do the mistakes that I've done a lot of mistakes, but it's the learning curve.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Have a good day.